All right, we are going to dive head first into Pete Prisco's what teams should do mock draft. Not what will they do. That's what most mock drafts are. This is what they should do, and it's different. Justin Fields is number 2 to the Jets. Zach Wilson falling 3 to the 49ers, and no other quarterbacks in the top 10 for Pete Prisco. We're going to get to it. Pete Prisco is going to join us. I'm Chris Hassel. I have Brady Quinn with me, and Brady's going to, I don't know if you call it nitpicking, but he's going to pick at Pete's mock just a little bit. Pete, I don't know how it's taken us this long to get into the anatomy of a mock, because we've been doing mocks each and every week all year. But explain why this mock is different from all others.
Well, this is me playing general manager for all the teams. And what I do is I pick the guys I think they should pick based on what they need, based on how I evaluate the players, and not necessarily based on trying to figure out who they will pick. This is my analysis of what I would do if I were general manager of each and every one of these teams, which I play a lot of the year, by the way. I pretend I am. In this case, I was. And so it's not trying to pick who they will pick, it's picking who they should pick.
This is what actually keeps me up at night, by the way, is thinking about Pete Prisco as a potential general manager of any NFL team and how sorry I feel for all within the organization and the players who are a part of it. But, Pete, I love that you did this activity, because I actually think there's a lot where we actually agree upon. Coming through this one, I was like, I don't know that there's much to really pick at, because you did a pretty good job, man.
Wow, Brady Quinn on draft eve is giving me compliments. I don't know what to do with myself.
Save it. Put it on your resume reel.
By the way, let me say this. This is 100% certainty. When Brady Quinn came out in the draft, and I did a who they should take draft, and I think if we could find it, I had him going in the top 10 because I thought he should go in the top 10. How about that?
Maybe if you would have went somewhere other than Cleveland, things would have worked out a little bit differently. Hey, look, that's what the case is here with Pete's mock at number 2. I would say, you know, coming out of the college football season, we were thinking Justin Fields number 2, number 2 quarterback. Now it sounds crazy because it's going to be Zach Wilson, but you agree with Pete putting Fields as the number 2.
He's the second best prospect in this draft for this reason. I think when you compare the others that fall into this category, whether it's Mac Jones or Zach Wilson, the thing you have to ask yourself, Mac Jones is probably tapped out. He's not going to become any more athletic, at least not more athletic than what Zach Wilson or Justin Fields already is. So he's coming into the NFL probably closer to the ceiling than the other two. Then when you look at Fields, you know, I think there's a lot to like about how they push the football down the field over the course of the year and a half in which he started. The fact that he is an accurate passer, especially when he knows where he's going with the football or understands what the defense is trying to take away from him. Now, does he get in trouble at times? Sure, but I think in the Clemson game, in the semifinal, when his team needed it the most, he stepped up. He had the best game of his career to give them a shot at winning a national championship. You can't say that about Zach Wilson. And I think when you look at, you know, again, Justin Fields in comparison to Mac Jones, it's that X factor, the ability to extend plays and run the football. Ohio State was hesitant to do so over the course of his year and a half there. And I think he's still got a lot that he can showcase for NFL teams. So I agree with Pete. If they're going based on the second best prospect in this draft, the New York Jets will be taking Justin Fields.
Yeah, and when you look at Fields, for some reason, he has become the guy that everybody loves to pick apart in the draft process, and I don't understand it. And he hasn't played a lot of football, and I think he's growing as a quarterback. I think the best is yet to come. If you're looking for the guy with the high ceiling, I think he and Trevor Lawrence are those two guys. And Brady, you would know this better than me, but if Trevor Lawrence were not in this draft, would Urban Meyer take Justin Fields number 1 overall? I probably think he would.
I think he would, too. I think it's a great question. It's one that, honestly, like during my time working with him, we didn't really come across that question because it was more about, hey, is Trevor Lawrence the guy? But, you know, I think if he wasn't in this draft, I think he would have a hard time passing up on taking him number 1 overall.
Let's look at Pete's top 10 once again, because obviously Lawrence goes 1. You got Fields going 2. And so then at 3, Pete has San Francisco taking Zach Wilson. Brady, if you were in that position, if you're doing a what should they do mock, would it be Wilson or would it be another quarterback?
It'd be Mac Jones. I've got Mac Jones rated higher than Zach Wilson. I think he's a really good fit for what Kyle Shanahan has done really throughout the course of his career as a play caller. He's athletic enough to do a lot of the boots and movement off of it, as is Zach Wilson. But, I think we've seen Mac Jones do it at a higher level this year. And, to me, Mac Jones is more comparable to the Jimmy Garoppolo who helped get them to a Super Bowl, or a Matt Ryan who helped them, get to another Super Bowl and won the MVP under the guidance of Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. And you can even go back to the Kirk Cousins days with the Washington football team with Kyle Shanahan during that time. So I just feel like Mac Jones right now, to me, is the better of the two, and he would make more sense at the number 3 spot if Fields isn't there.
Pete, did you consider that, Mac Jones at 3 instead of Wilson?
No, because I don't think he's that highly rated. I'll be honest with you. I think he's a mid-first round pick, and most of the guys I talk to around the league agree with me. When the process pretty much got going after the games were concluded, everybody said, "Oh, Mac Jones, probably a mid-round pick, late-round first-round pick, a mid-first-round pick, late first-round pick," and then all of a sudden, the 49ers make the deal to go up, and everybody's jumped on board. Look how great Mac Jones is. Of course, Kyle Shanahan's a genius. Look what he did. He went up to get Mac Jones. And now all of a sudden, 1 guy says it, 2 guys say it, 4 guys say it, and now 8 guys say it. And they're all in line. Look, I asked this question sincerely. How much better is he than A.J. McCarron was in college? And look, he's better. I get it. But for me, he's in between A.J. McCarron and Matt Ryan. And I'm not trading 2 first-round picks to go get that guy.
Well,
Ryan would be pretty good.
Well, and look, yeah, exactly. I mean, he's been MVP before, and he's gotten a team to a Super Bowl. I think the biggest question becomes, like, does he fit what Kyle Shanahan wants to do? And I think the one thing Kyle Shanahan wants out of any quarterback that's in his system is 2 things: accuracy, and he holds that to the highest standard, and then can he operate his system? Mac Jones can do both those things. Now, I'm not saying that Zach Wilson can't, but I think when you start breaking down the comparison between Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, the thing I always come back to with Zach Wilson is took a big leap this past year. What do you conclude was the reason for that? They played a really, really weak, soft schedule where they were by far and away the best team against anyone they played in that group of 5, with the exception of Coastal Carolina, where Zach Wilson had his worst game. So he's not going to get all day to throw the football like he did this past season for BYU, where he had his best season. He's not going to be able to throw up 50-50 balls or take a lot more risky throws against better competition like he's going to do at the NFL level. That might fly versus a group of 5 team, not versus better opponents. Go back, watch the tape. Mac Jones has as good a tape of anyone this year, and he did it at the highest level in college football.
Okay, so the big surprise in the top 5. Okay,
but Brady,
I know you watched the tape too.
Wasn't Alabama head and shoulders above every team they played as well?
Sure, but he also delivered and did exactly what he needed to do. So I get it. It's a wash.
I get it. And he also had better players around him.
Yeah, and you don't think Zach Wilson had better players around him compared to what they were playing against?
Not the way Alabama has them against most of the country. Look, I'll give him credit because Ohio State had really good players. They dominated him.
Completion percentage. I mean, he's going up against the toughest division, the SEC, and all SEC schedule. We've never seen that before. They ran the table. He did everything he was asked to do. You can't penalize a guy for being what he was dealt with COVID and going out and delivering exactly what he needed to. And as much as we want to sit there and say, well, look who he's throwing to, Devontae Smith is a product of what Mac Jones did. It's not like they just dinked and dunked the whole time throwing screens or hitches to him. They stretched the field vertically. He diagnosed exactly what, against the best conference in college football, needed him to do, and he delivered. There's really not more you can say from that. I'm sorry, man.
The conference was down last year. That's a given. It wasn't as good as it's been in the past. And LSU was down. Auburn won there good. I mean,
so
the conference was down.
How does Zach Wilson play versus an entire SEC schedule? How does he play versus an entire SEC schedule?
I get it, but if you put Zach Wilson in his system and put Mac Jones with BYU, who's better? And how much better is he?
I literally think you get probably the same, if not a better result with Mac Jones at BYU. I think you're greatly underestimating what he did this past year.
Okay, that's Pete's final word. You're crazy. He likes Zach Wilson. Brady Quinn likes Mac Jones a little bit better than Zach Wilson. All right, moving on to another surprise in the top 5. Pete Prisco going with offensive lineman Christian Darasol over Penei Sewell. Why, Pete?
Because I think he's a better left tackle prospect. I really do. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy to say that. I think this kid has amazing upside. He reminds me of Laramie Tunsil, but with a lot of growth potential. One concern with Darasol is I think he needs to get stronger in the upper body, and he will once he gets with an NFL team. But he's athletic, he's tough, he's physical, and he anchors in. He does a really good job. He just looks more natural. Penei Sewell is a good player. I'm not going to take that away from him. He is athletic as any tackle I've ever seen coming out of the draft. But I don't know about his toughness. And you talk about the SEC, Brady. When he played Auburn, he got pushed around a little bit in that game last year. And that tells me something about him. So I prefer Darasol to Sewell, but it's close.
I don't think it's even close. Look, I think Christian Darasol is the second best tackle in this draft, in my opinion, based on how he played this past year. And the reason why I say this past year is because it was by far and away his best year. In comparison with everything else that I think you've seen through the course of his career, he's built up to that point. I get it. He's ascending in the right direction, but he's been kind of a slow developer throughout the course of his life. He had to go to Fork Union before he actually went to Virginia Tech, didn't have many offers coming out of high school, and he eventually built himself into what he is. But you also have to take into account that 0 sacks allowed, over 269 pass attempts. Virginia Tech was a very run-heavy football team this past year. They weren't necessarily challenged to throw the football. He wasn't necessarily challenged to actually have to pass protect. It's going to be a different story, especially if you're talking about a Cincinnati Bengals team that gave up a ton of points last year, and unless they make a ton of changes on defense, they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. So he better be able to pass protect, in particular for the blind side of Joe Burrow. That's where I think it's more of a specialty for Penei Sewell, who was one of the best players coming out of high school at Oregon, and he did nothing but continually improve and impress and mature over time. I think the biggest thing for Penei Sewell moving forward is the year off of football. How rusty could he potentially be? But more so than that, losing some of that experience, losing some of that opportunity to really mature and develop into the player that he will be. To me, Penei Sewell has the highest upside. I don't see any world where Cincinnati passes up on Sewell to go with a guy like Christian Darasol.
I thought you said you agreed with most of what Pete put together on what teams should do.
We've picked out the couple of things in which we don't.
Okay, how about the next one? Jamin Davis to the Broncos at 9.
Yeah, I don't see them going that direction. I think he's a good player. He's another guy who had a great year this past year, and I think he could have a phenomenal NFL career. I don't know that that's the direction they go. If they had the opportunity to take Davis or Micah Parsons at the linebacker spot, I think they take Parsons. The only reason they don't is because potential off-the-field issues. Outside of that, depending on if in this scenario Mac Jones is there, I don't necessarily know that they're done taking a quarterback. Even with trading for Teddy Bridgewater, I think there's the chance that they would pull the trigger on Mac Jones in Denver if he's available at that number 9 spot, instead of taking a defensive player who, again, it's not necessarily a deep draft for these linebacker positions, but you could get somewhat of a comparable player later on in this draft.
Well, I disagree. I think the only comparable player is Parsons, and you mentioned it. The reason he might drop down is some off the field.
Jeremiah,
he's a little guy.
Zaven Collins, he's 225
pounds. He's about 215 pounds.
He's 225 pounds.
He's 215 pounds. What's he play, Brady? He's a hybrid. He's a good football player.
Outside. If you watch the tape, he wasn't dropping back into deep half coverage. He plays out the hip,
he's
outside
215
linebacker.
pounds.
He's 225 pounds. I just talked to him today.
Every team has concerns about where he plays, and there's no concerns about where Jamin Davis is playing.
It seems like Notre Dame didn't have a concern.
He's the Anthony Barr clone.
It seemed like they had actually a great time putting him in. Notre Dame didn't. They seemed to put him in the right spot. I think another NFL team can.
Well, Jamin Davis is more NFL ready. He's got a better body. He's Anthony Barr.
How about what Brady said, that the Broncos may not be out of the running for a quarterback with their top pick if one of those top guys, like a Mac Jones, were to fall there? I know you said earlier you thought the Teddy Bridgewater trade was the Broncos basically saying we're moving forward with our guy Drew Lock.
Well, and you keep hearing around the league that they are. Now, maybe that's not true, but I would. You drafted him. He threw 7 touchdown passes and 2 picks in his last 4 games. There was some hope there. He was doing it with a banged-up receiver group. Why not find out what you have? Is Mac Jones coming out of college that much better than what Drew Lock was? I don't think Mac Jones coming out of college is that much better than what Jimmy Garoppolo is. And so I don't understand that. If Justin Fields fell, maybe. But aside from that, if I'm the Broncos, I'm playing with what I have and moving on from there.
Trey Lance would be the quarterback that would be available. I just think the concern there is, limited amount of reps. Some people are saying, hey, he's similar to Josh Allen as far as looking at what his trajectory could be, but how many organizations are going to truly give a guy 3 years to build to that point of stability and system and players around him and continually give him more help around him? It's just seldom you're going to get to find that at the NFL level.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Pete has a 6th quarterback being taken in the first round of his What Teams Should Do mock, and it's Davis Mills, a guy who you had going number 20 to the Bears in one of your mock drafts several weeks ago. But you have him going to Tampa. What would Tom Brady think of this?
I think it'd be a waste of what they've done. I mean, they're signing everyone back because they want to run it back. And I don't think they want to invest, in particular in Davis Mills, who, don't get me wrong, he could be a guy that's taken in the 2nd, 3rd round, but he's not a first-round talent. If Pete doesn't think Mac Jones is, I have no idea how I think Davis Mills is. I actually broke down a bunch of tape today in preparation for this whole conversation. He's a good quarterback. He's smart. He's accurate at times with the football, but you're talking about another guy who, didn't show the type of consistency that I think you need to say could actually fill in one day in those big shoes left behind for Tom Brady. So bottom line is I can't see them taking that pick going in that direction.
No, I didn't say Mac Jones wasn't a first-round quarterback, Brady. I never said that. I just don't think he's a top 5 quarterback or top 5 pick. He shouldn't be drafted that high. I don't think Davis Mills is going to be that much worse, if at all, than Mac Jones in the NFL. How about that? Ooh. I think Davis Mills, he's only played 11 games in his career. That is concerning. I get it, which is why Trey Lance is also concerning to a lot of people. You got to play. People want to see you play. There is a knee injury issue, which, again, is something to hold me back a little bit. But if he's healthy, I think he's going to be a quality starter in the NFL. And Tampa Bay, they brought everybody back. Why not draft a guy for the future?
You watch Stanford, the guy who stands out to you when you're watching Davis Mills is Simi Fehoko, the wide receiver. I mean, that kid, I don't know when he's going to get drafted. He can flat out play. He's going to be one of those kids that I think has a better NFL career than anyone remembers what he did at the college football level. So keep an eye out on that, Simi Fehoko.
Well, we got a lot of tallies going with Pete Prisco. We got Joe Burrow, multiple titles in the next 9 seasons. You got Trevor Lawrence, championship in the next 10. And now Davis Mills going to be a better quarterback in the NFL than Mac Jones. Mark it down, according to Pete Prisco. Hey, Pete has one more mock draft coming, and he's really excited about it. Pete tweeting, "I hate my final mock." Pete, what's up, man?
Well, you know what? You listen to so many things and you watch all the tape and you talk to people in the league and you come down and you sit down and you try and put it down on paper and then you go, I hate this thing. It's going to get blown up 3 picks in or 4 picks in. It's just frustrating. And yet we sit here and we agonize over the damn thing, and I'm waiting to talk to some more people later. I might move some people around. I hate it.
Imagine being Ryan Wilson, right? Hey, 2022 coming up shortly. Pete, Brady are going to hang around here for just a bit on the eve of the NFL draft. Up next, we've got some draft memes with Brady Quinn and also some draft props.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.